You may have a prepper pantry stacked to the rafters with food, but when the lights go out, do you know what you're making for dinner? Hey guys, it's Jara with Wicked Prepared. Welcome back everyone. We are all about preparedness and food storage, and one of my favorite things to do with my food storage is put together these emergency meal kits, aka meals in a bag. Many people prepare for emergencies by stockpiling shelf-stable foods like beans and rice, canned and freeze-dried foods, and that's a great start, but sometimes we don't put much thought into how we would actually make a meal out of those items. When the you-know-what hits the fan and the power goes out, that is not the time to be figuring it out. That's where these meal kits come in handy. Grab one bag off the shelf and you have everything you need to make a complete meal, right down to and including the water. This can be a lifesaver. And as many people have realized, they have uses beyond just grid down emergencies. They also come in handy on busy nights when you don't have time to come up with a meal plan, you didn't make it to the store, or you need to ask someone else to fix dinner like your teen or your spouse. They can be perfect to gift to someone who's fallen upon hard times or who just could use a quick and easy meal that they can fix on their schedule rather than bringing a already prepared meal that they have to eat right away. The meal kit I'm putting together today is a French onion beef noodle casserole. This is a big family favorite for us. We make it often, it's super easy to fix, and everyone likes it. Anytime I have a pound of ground beef, this is one of the first things that comes to my mind every time. And when someone asks the question, what can I make with a pound of hamburger that's not spaghetti, tacos, or meatloaf? This is usually the first idea I give them. It's perfect because this month is actually National Beef Month, so it's the perfect time to feature recipes using beef. But to make this a completely shelf-stable emergency meal, instead of using fresh hamburger, I'm using a can of Keystone ground beef. Keystone Meats has been a trusted family brand for over 60 years. Their entire line of canned meat products are made with just two ingredients, meat and sea salt. There's nothing artificial or lab grown, there's no preservatives, just real meat and real sea salt. Each can has a stated shelf life of 5 years, although we all know that canned foods can last years past their best by dates. Having some Keystone beef on my shelves solves so many dilemmas. Fresh meat goes bad quickly, sometimes before we can use it. It takes up precious fridge and freezer space, it's prone to freezer burn, and not to mention if the power goes out, there goes all your fresh and frozen meat. In honor of National Beef Month, Keystone is doing a giveaway of a variety pack of all their meats. I'm going to have instructions on how to enter the giveaway at the end of the video, so be sure to stay tuned. Shout out to Keystone for doing this and for being supportive of this channel and my cooking adventures, and for being one of my go-to protein solutions for emergency preparedness, camping trips, and quick easy meals at home any night. Now let's get right into this meal and what you need to put it together. Okay, the ingredients we're going to need for this recipe, we're going to have a bag of egg noodles. This is a 1 pound bag of egg noodles. Of course, the star of the show is going to be our Keystone ground beef. This is a 28-ounce can. I've got a jar of shelf-stable French onion dip. This is a 15-ounce jar. I've got 2 cans of cream of mushroom soup. And then I've got this bag of French fried onions. Now this came from Dollar Tree. They sell a small bag, and sometimes packaging from the Dollar Tree is perfect for meals in a bag because this is the perfect amount to go over 1 casserole. And then of course I've got 2 individual size water bottles, and that's going to be used to cook the pasta. Now if you want, you can also include a can of veggie because there's no veggie included in this dish. So if you want it to be a complete meal, you're going to want to have some fruit or veggie with it. So I'm just going to include a can of green beans. You can include whatever your family likes. So now let's go ahead and get these ingredients into the bag. Now I just want to tell you a little bit about the bags that I use for my meals. I use 2 different sizes of bags, and this is the larger of the 2 sizes because this meal has a lot of ingredients. I get these off of Amazon. I will link them down below in the description box below the video, along with everything else I use in the video. I like that these bags are nice and sturdy. This is kind of like a plastic type of material. It doesn't feel like it will rip very easily. I've never had them really rip. It has a nice flat bottom with a paper tray down there to hold it nice and flat. I label these bags on 2 different sides. On this narrow side, I just use a chalkboard label and I write the name of the dish, and that's because when I have these standing on a shelf, usually this side is the one that's facing out so I can easily read what's in the bag. And then on this side, I use, this is a CD pocket self-adhesive. It doesn't come on the bag. I add them on myself, and I just put a little recipe card in there where I include the ingredients that go in the meal, and then I include the instructions for cooking it. If it's a very simple meal, you might not even need this. Like, I could cook this meal with my eyes closed. I've done it a million times, but I put this in here in case someone else was to be preparing this meal, which sometimes this comes in handy for. And having the ingredients are really nice, this list, because once you've eaten this meal and used it, you can go ahead and put together another bag and you have the ingredients right there. But you can do this however you want. You can use any kind of bag or container to contain your meals. I have used 2-gallon Ziplocs. I've used paper gift bags I found at Dollar Tree. Some people use little shoe boxes. You can do anything you want. Label them anyhow you want. You can stick your recipe card right inside or whatever feels best to you. Let's go ahead and get our ingredients in. I'm going to start with my can of Hamburg. And next I'm going to add my jar of dip. I'm going to go ahead and put in the bag of egg noodles. I'm going to add my 2 cans of cream of mushroom, my 2 bottles of water, my can of veggie, and my French fried onions. And now this bag is all ready to go on the shelf. But today I'm not going to put it on the shelf. I'm going to go ahead and fix this meal up for you right now so you can see how it comes together and what it looks like when it's done. So for this meal, like so many other emergency meals that I do, I'm going to be using my butane stove. These stoves are really inexpensive, they're very powerful, and they're considered safe to use indoors, so they're a great choice. They just run on cans of butane fuel like this. Just put it in there, lock it into place, and you are good to go. I'm going to use a pot. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and open up this can of ground beef, because what we're going to do is use some of the fat and liquid that's inside to put in our pasta water, because that's going to be just like putting a little bit of oil and a little bit of salt in your pasta water when you cook your pasta. It's going to flavor it a little bit, help keep it from sticking together, and it's going to make use of everything that we have in this can. Remember, the only ingredients in these are beef and salt. Sea salt, so there's not even any water added to this. The juices that are in here are going to be just the juices that the meat naturally releases. Now you can see inside the can, whoops, we've got some chunks of fat, and you can see the little bit of meat juices that are in there. That fat can be easily picked off if you don't want to include that, but sometimes you might want to use this. If you had something else you were going to saute, you could use this good beef fat. Or if you were actually in an emergency situation, you would want all the calories that you could get, and this fat would be an important source of calories. But what I'm going to use it for today, like I said, is to put it into the water. But this is just exactly like what you would see in a jar of home canned ground beef. You certainly could use a jar of home canned ground beef, but I know a lot of people aren't comfortable with pressure canning. And honestly, I do pressure can ground beef, but if I'm making a meal in a bag like this, I don't really want to throw a glass jar in there. And the other thing is, honestly, in this day and age, the way that meat prices are getting and the price of canning jars is going up, I don't know if I could even can this much ground beef for the price I can buy it. So these are super handy to have. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pick out some of this fat, what I can easily get. I'm going to drain off some of the juices right into the pan. And then what I'm going to do this time is I'm just going to take my little strainer here and I'm going to dump it right over the pot just to get out any last bits of juice. Like I said, it's not necessary to do any of this, but I just don't want these bits in my sauce for this dish. I'd rather have them in my pasta cooking water. It also makes it easier to get out all the fat if it's gone around the sides of the meat, but this one was actually pretty easy. And then one last thing that I'm going to do is I'm just going to pour some of my water right over the meat to rinse off a little bit of the extra broth. Once again, this is not necessary, but I'm just doing it for the aesthetics of this dish. And I'm going to go ahead and set the meat aside because now we're not going to need it until the noodles are cooked. All right, so now I've got 1 bottle of water in here and all the juices and fats from my beef. I'm going to go ahead and add my other bottle of water. Now this is not a ton of water for cooking this amount of pasta, but it will work. I've done it plenty of times. A grid down emergency is not a time that you're going to want to be wasting a lot of extra water. In fact, with a dish like this, what you can do if you're really desperate is you can use less water and put all of the ingredients in together with the dry pasta and let it cook, and it'll absorb the water and you won't even have to drain any. But we're going to do it this way. And the other thing that you can do, because we included this veggie, there's also some water in here. And just like with the meat, the only ingredients in this can are going to be green beans, water, and salt. So if I drain this liquid into here, it's going to give us a little more water for cooking the pasta, and it's just going to be like adding a little more salt to our pasta water. So it's going to be great. All right, go ahead and drain that right in there. I'm going to go ahead and turn the heat on. Leave it on high so it can boil as quickly as I can. I am going to put a lid on this that's going to conserve some heat, and it's going to let it boil faster. And when the noodles are cooking, it's going to make sure that they stay a little bit moister and don't dry out where we're not having that much water. All right, as you can see, this is just about to come to a boil. It's starting to simmer for sure. So I'm going to go ahead and add our bag of egg noodles. I'm going to go ahead and stir these in really well. Make sure they all get wet and moistened, and then press them down as much as I can into the water. And I'm going to go ahead and put the lid on. We're just going to cook these according to the package directions, and then I'll be right back. Okay, our noodles are done. I'm going to go ahead and drain these. All right, so the noodles are drained. The next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and mix up this whole casserole right in the same pot we cooked the noodles in. There's no need to dirty another dish. The first thing I'm going to do is dump our ground beef right into the noodles. And I'm just going to go ahead and break up this ground beef a little bit, just like we would if we were cooking fresh ground beef. The heat from the noodles is going to help with this a little bit also. So next, I'm going to add my 2 cans of cream of mushroom soup. Now these cans have a pop top, but some of these cans, like the beef, did not. So you want to always make sure you have a manual can opener on hand in your emergency cooking supplies and in your everyday kitchen. And if you want to be extra safe, I will sometimes throw a small military can opener right into the bag with these, because you can get a whole set of those for just a few dollars. All right, I'm going to put in my cream of mushroom soup. These skinny scrapers are absolutely indispensable for getting Campbell's soup out of the jar. I love these little scrapers, especially for this purpose, but they're handy for all sorts of things. I have several of them. And I've bought lots of other skinny scrapers like this in my quest to find something that works just as well, and I have never found anything that works just like it. So both cans of soup. And finally, I'm going to add the jar of dip. Now when I make this just from fresh ingredients on a regular everyday occasion, I use the tub of refrigerated dip that you can get near the sour cream in the grocery store's dairy section. But this is going to work just fine for these purposes. And this way we can have it all shelf stable. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and mix this all together. All right, so now that this is pretty well mixed, I'm going to go ahead and put this in a pan to bake it. Now there's the one caveat with this dish, is that this is a casserole, so it's baked. Now there are several different ways that you can bake in a grid down situation, and I'll go over those a little bit at the end of the video. And I also have a video coming out very soon showcasing several of the ways that you can bake in a grid down situation. But if you have no way to bake, you could certainly just have the dish like this. You could put it back on the burner and warm it through. It's already pretty warm already. And then just sprinkle your topping on the top and serve it like that. It wouldn't be quite as crispy as if you bake it in the oven, but it would definitely do the trick, and it would definitely fill your belly and taste just the same. But we are going to be putting this into a 9x13 pan. I do have a foil pan here. If this was a grid down situation without electricity and without water, without hot water, we're not going to want to be washing a lot of dishes. So I try to keep some disposable bakeware on hand. In fact, sometimes I even put these pans right with the bag on the shelf with the meal in a bag. So you can do that if you want to. I'm going to go ahead and dump this into the pan. Just spread it out evenly. This is a 9x13 pan, if I didn't mention that. That is all spread in the pan. All right, so now that the casserole is all spread out, the last step is going to be to add the French fried onions. I'm going to go ahead and open the bag up first, but then I'm going to crunch this up to make sure that they're in a little bit smaller pieces. I like to open bags before I crunch, because otherwise you risk the bag popping open and losing your stuff all over the floor. This makes such a nice crispy topping for a casserole. Ever since I discovered this little trick, I do this on a lot of things. And sometimes we just crisp these French fried onions up in the oven and use them almost like a condiment. We sprinkle them over meatloaf with some gravy, but you could put them on a burger. You could put them on all kinds of things. I'm just going to kind of evenly sprinkle these across this casserole. as evenly as I can. All right, so there we go. This is all ready to go in. Now, the good thing about this casserole is it only has to cook for about 20 minutes at 350. It's still pretty warm from the ground beef being hot starting out, and we really just have to heat it through and crisp up these onions. So this is going to be a quick and easy one to bake. All right, here it is fresh from the oven. You can see that those onions got all crispy and toasted up. The casserole is all hot. 20 minutes is all it took, and now it's ready to serve. I heated the green beans in the same pot that I did the casserole, and I just wiped it out, used a little bit of that beef fat from the can to saute them, and they are ready to go. All right, let's serve this dinner. All right, there we go. It looks delicious and it smells delicious. This is absolutely one of my favorite dinners. If you don't have a way to bake when the power's out, I'm going to give you a few options. Number one, keep in mind, like I mentioned, most of the recipes that I do like this that are meant to be baked could be done on the stovetop completely if you needed to, if you don't have a way to bake. We like to use a cast iron Dutch oven to bake without power. We do that a lot when we're camping. We use charcoal briquettes, and we do store quite a bit of charcoal briquettes, but it can also be used with a campfire coals if you didn't have any charcoal. It's a really great way to bake. We have done everything from dinners to desserts. I've done cakes in it. It's really fantastic. You can stack multiple Dutch ovens and cook more than one thing at the same time using a little bit less fuel. So it's really great. They also make propane camp ovens that can be used outside with propane fuel. One great thing about those is you can get one that will hold a 9x13 pan. Another option for baking when the power is out is a sun oven or a solar oven. That's another option that is meant to be used outdoors. So everything I've listed so far is really for baking outdoors. So if that's not an option for you, there is a little oven called an Instafire Ember. I think it's pretty new on the market. The great thing about it is you can use it outdoors with any kind of biofuel like wood or sticks. You can use it indoors with canned alcohol gel fuel. So that's another option. And I also have a camp oven that doesn't use its own fuel. It's just a box that sits on top of a camp stove burner. So that could be used on the butane burner indoors, for instance. So those are just some ways that you can bake when the power is out. And if you keep an eye out, I'm going to have a video coming up really soon where I'm going to demonstrate a lot of those different ways. To enter the giveaway to win a variety pack of Keystone Meats, just go to their website. I'm going to have the giveaway page linked down below, and vote for what's your biggest beef in the kitchen. What's your worst kitchen dilemma? That's all you have to do to be entered to win the variety pack. Thank you to Keystone for doing this contest and for sending me a pack of meats to work with in developing new recipes for the channel. If you made it all the way to the end of the video, leave me a hamburger emoji down in the comments, and check out this playlist next for some more meal ideas like this one. I'm Jara with Wicked Prepared. Survive today, thrive tomorrow. We'll see you next time.